2, episode 4. So I wrote down the season and episode, so I'm going to let you know exactly when you guys can go back and verify everything that we say. So, build to the Mad Queen. Season 2, episode 4. Dany speaking to the trader of spices at the gates of Koth. She says, 13. When my dragons are grown, we will take back what was stolen from me and destroy those who have wronged me. We will lay waste to armies and burn cities to the ground. Turn us away, and we will burn you first. Now, if that's not a foreshadow, bro, I don't know what is. And guess what he replies to her? He goes back and says, you are a true Targaryen. So this is something, that's the very first big quote. This is season 2, episode 4. This is way back in the beginning, right? Then not to be outdone, season 2, episode 6. Dany again speaking to the trader of spices in an attempt to get him to loan her his ships. She says, I am Daenerys Stormborn of the blood of old Valyria, and I will take what is mine. With fire and blood, I will take it. Season 2 again, guys. Season 3, episode 7. Dany meets with the wise master of Yunkai to prevent a battle for the city. Master of Yunkai says, we ask that you make use of these ships, sail them back to Westeros where you belong, and leave us to conduct our affairs in peace. He tells him, I have a gift for you as well. Your life. And the lives of your wise masters. But I also want something in return. You will release every slave in Yunkai. Every man, woman, and child should be given as much food, clothing, and property as they can carry as payment for their years of servitude. Reject this gift, and I shall show you no mercy. To which he replies, you are mad. No shit.
Foreshadowing at its finest.
Now we jump into season 4, episode 7. So guys, we're still in the beginning half of this entire series, and we've already got 3 huge quotes that have been foreshadowing this big event. Dany, because he was like, yeah, you shouldn't trust a man like this. And so Dany goes, this is her quotes. I could never have faith in a man like Dario. That's why I've sent him and the second sons to retake Yunkai. And Jorah replies, you have. And Dany says back, I have. Jorah then says, without you there to rule Khaleesi, I fear the masters will simply bide their time, wait for the invaders to leave, and reassert control. To which Dany says, that is why I have ordered Dario to execute every master in Yunkai. The masters tear babies from their mother's arms. They mutilate little boys by the thousands. They train little girls in the art of pleasuring old men. They treat men like beasts, as you said yourself. And Jorah says back, well, herding the masters into pens and slaughtering them by the thousands is also treating men like beasts. The slaves you freed, brutality is all they've ever known. If you want them to know something different, you'll have to show it to them. Guys, she literally just said she was going to execute every single master, innocent or guilty, in Yunkai because they defied her as a whole. She just said, well, screw it. They're all dead. And Jorah has to talk her out of it. Season 5, episode 2. After finding the son of the harpy in the wall, they're all congregated, trying to figure out what they're going to do about the situation. The slave, the one that spoke for all the slaves, remember him? Mm-hmm. Please, your grace, you must kill him. And Dany replies, it would send a message. Barristan Selmy then says, I think you should exercise restraint, your grace. And Dany, with a dirty look in her face, says, why? And Barristan replies, for one thing, he may have valuable information. We don't know what this man did or didn't do. Give him a trial at least. A fair trial. Show all the citizens of Meereen that you are better than those who would depose you. Teach them a better way. And so then Barristan asks to have a word with her in private, immediately following that. And Dany asks, a word about what? And Barristan says, about your father. about the Mad King. Dany says, the Mad King? You're here to remind me of my enemy's lies? Consider me reminded. And Barristan says, Your Grace, I served in his Kingsguard. I was at his side from the first. Your enemies did not lie. Dany says, Go on. Barristan replies, When the people rose in revolt against him, your father set their towns and castles aflame. He murdered sons in front of their fathers. He burned men alive with wildfire and laughed as they screamed. And his efforts to stamp out dissent led to the rebellion that killed every Targaryen except 2. And Dan replies, I'm not my father. Barristan says, No, your grace, thank the gods. But the Mad King gave his enemies the justice he thought they deserved, and each time it made him feel powerful and right until the very end. So again, basically warning her of, if you keep going along this path, what can happen to you. I've seen it happen. I watched your father do it. Season 6, episode 9, like Dany returned to Meereen under attack from Yunkai and asked support, talking to Tyrion. Dany says, Shall we begin? And Tyrion, he replies, Well, do we have a plan? And Dany tells him, Well, I will crucify the masters. I will set their fleets aflame, kill every last one of their soldiers, and return their cities to the dirt. That is my plan. And Tyrion goes right back at her and says, Well, you once told me you knew what your father was. Did you know his plan for King's Landing when the Lannisters' armies were at his gates? Probably not. Well, he told my brother, and Jaime told me. He had caches of wildfire hidden under the Red Keep, the guild halls, the Sept of Baelor, all the major thoroughfares. He would have burned every one of his citizens, the loyal ones and the traitors, every man, woman, and child, and that's why Jaime killed him. Dany says, This is entirely different. To which Tyrion replies, You're talking about destroying cities. It's not entirely different. Every time she's had a crazy idea, like returning the city to the dirt, killing all the soldiers, someone's had to talk her out of it. So now it went from Jorah to Selmy to Tyrion. Now we go up here to season 7, episode 2. Dany at Dragonstone talking strategy with Tyrion and Varys. Dany says, If Viserys had 3 dragons and an army at his back, he'd have invaded King's Landing already, as if she's impatient to get on with it. And Tyrion replies back to her, Conquering Westeros would be easy for you, but you're not here to be Queen of the Ashes. Has to remind her again why you're doing this, right? Now, we get into season 7, episode 4. Dany at Dragonstone, learning that they were outsmarted at Casterly Rock when Tyrion made one of his big mistakes, right? Dany tells him, Enough with the clever plans. I have 3 large dragons. I'm going to fly them to the Red Keep. And Tyrion cuts her off. We've discussed this. And Dany recuts him off. My enemies are in the Red Keep. What kind of queen am I if I'm not willing to risk my life to fight them? And Tyrion sarcastically replies, A smart one. And so Dany then looks to Jon. Dany asks, What do you think I should do? And Jon Snow tells her, I would never presume to, and then Dany cuts him off. I'm at war. I'm losing. What do you think I should do? And Jon tells her, I never thought that dragons would exist again. No one did. The people who follow you know that you made something impossible happen, and maybe that helps them believe that you can make other impossible things happen. Build a world that's different from the shit one they've always known. But if you use them to melt castles and burn cities, you're not different. You're just more of the same. Now Jon's got to tell her what she should be doing, because she has these crazy impulses all along. Now we get into season 7, episode 5. Dany holding her own trial after advising her enemies to bend the knee or die. This is with Dickon and Randall Tarly, right? Dany burns Randall Tarly and Dickon Tarly, even though Tyrion was asking her to take the alternative actions. He asked 3 different times for 3 different alternatives. And then she still went about and burned them her own way, which you saw how that created a huge conflict later on with Sam Tarly, right? Then, the quote that I'm focusing on here, under that, is Tyrion talking to Varys after the incident. He tells Varys, I am her hand, not her head. I can't make her decisions for her. As we start to see how this is leading up to where it's going to become a big problem, because then Varys tells him, you need to find a way to make her listen, right? Because burning people alive like that without a trial, without anything other than just either bend the knee or die, it's not right. Now, we get into the final season. Season 8, Episode 4. Dany's at the War Council discussing the last war. Dany tells everyone, we will hit her hard, referring to Cersei. We will rip her out root and stem. And Tyrion has to remind her, the objective here is to remove Cersei without destroying King's Landing. And then what Varys tells her is like, well, we've got the Prince of Dorne in our pocket. She's pledged her loyalty to you. And we've got Yara, who retook the Iron Islands in your grace's name. Dany replies, no matter how many lords turn against her, as long as she sits on the Iron Throne, she can call herself Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. We need the capital. Tyrion and Jon literally have to come up with a plan to surround the city and make her see that they can do it without killing everyone. And even after that, she says grudgingly, you can see it on screen, grudgingly says, all right. Like she's annoyed that she had to make a compromise where she didn't kill everybody. Season 8, Episode 4. Dany with Varys, Tyrion, and Grey Worm after Euron killed Rhaegal took Missandei captive. Grey Worm, out of nowhere, goes, we will storm the city, my queen. We will kill your enemies, all of them. Varys looks at her. He goes, your grace, I promised you I would look you in the eye and speak directly if I ever thought you were making a mistake. This is a mistake. And Dany replies, you saw my child fall from the sky. They took Missandei. And Varys tells her again, Cersei needs to be destroyed, but if we attack King's Landing with Drogon and the Unsullied and the Dothraki, tens of thousands of innocents will die. That is why Cersei is bringing them into the Red Keep. These are the people you came here to protect. I beg you, your grace, do not destroy the city you came to save. Do not become what you have always struggled to defeat. And then Dany goes back at him and says, do you believe we're here for a reason, Lord Varys? I'm here to free the world from tyrants. That is my destiny, and I will serve it no matter the cost. To which Tyrion has to say, it could be a fortnight before Jon and the allied armies make it to King's Landing. In the meantime, demand Cersei's surrender, offer her life in exchange for the throne. And Dany, on screen, you can see this, Season 8, Episode 4, she shakes her head no. She doesn't say anything, but she shakes her head no. And Tyrion, pleadingly goes, if there's a chance to avoid the oncoming slaughter, we should make the effort. And then Dany says, speaking to Cersei will not prevent a slaughter. But perhaps it's good the people see that Daenerys Stormborn made every attempt and an effort to avoid bloodshed, and Cersei Lannister refused. They should know who to blame when the sky falls down upon them. She's telling us what she's going to do.
Foreshadowing at its finest.
She's literally letting them know, the sky's going to fall down on their head. You should know who to blame. Season 8, Episode 5. Dany's talking with Jon about what happens when people find out the truth of Jon's lineage and how Sansa betrayed Jon, betrayed his trust, and killed Varys as much as she did. Dany tells Jon, far more people in Westeros love you than love me. I don't have love here. I only have fear. To which Jon replies, I love you, and you will always be my queen. And then Dany asks him, is that all I am to you? Your queen? As she starts kissing him and trying to get involved with him, she realizes he's not into it, and he pulls away. To which she whispers, very menacingly, all right then, let it be fear. My last quote before I give you the sequence of events. Season 8, Episode 5, Dany and Dragonstone Throne Room talking about the war with Tyrion and Grey Worm. Tyrion says, the people who live there, they're not your enemies. They're innocents, like the ones you liberated in Meereen. And Dany replies, in Meereen, the slaves turned on their masters and liberated the city themselves the moment I arrived. To which Tyrion says, they're afraid. Anyone who resists Cersei will see his family butchered. You can't expect them to be heroes. They're hostages. And Dany tells him they are. In a tyrant's grip. Whose fault is that? Mine? And Tyrion replies, what does it matter whose fault it is? Thousands of children will die if the city burns. To which Dany tells him again, your sister knows how to use her enemies' weaknesses against them. That's what she thinks our mercy is. Weakness. To which Tyrion says, I beg you, my queen. And Dany cuts her off. But she's wrong. Mercy is our strength. Our mercy towards future generations that will never again be held hostage by a tyrant. So Dany looks over to Grey Worm. Ready the Unsullied. Tonight you sail for King's Landing to join the Northern Army. And Tyrion has to stop her and say real quick, Cersei's followers will abandon her if they know the war is lost. Give them that chance. If the city surrenders, they will ring the bells and raise the gates. Please, if you hear them ringing the bells, call off the attack. And Dany pauses for a while and then nods. Dany then turns to Grey Worm and says, wait for me outside the city. You'll know when it's time. So now you guys see, I don't even know how many quotes that was. From the very beginning, all the way up to that last quote that I just mentioned there before they attacked the city. If you didn't know what was going to happen, you haven't been paying attention. Okay? Now, guys, I'm going to lead you up to all the events that happened in Daenerys' life that would cause anybody to go mad. We're not blaming Daenerys for this.
Yeah.
Because if you think about what happens here, listen. Events that led up to her losing her mind. Number 1, her brother Viserys, who was with her since infancy, dies. Even though she basically let it happen and watched him die, that's still someone that you've known since your birth, right? Your only other Targaryen that you know, because she didn't know who Jon was back then.
Right.
The only other one in your line dies. Gone. 2, Khal Drogo, the man she loved more than anyone, dies, along with her unborn child in her womb, Rhaego, dies. 3, Rakaro, her blood rider that she sent off in the Red Waste, returned with his head in a saddle because the he ran into another Khalasar, and they cut his head off and cut his hair and sent it back to her. And Eerie, remember she opens the thing and was crying that they killed his soul?
Right.
Boom, that's another person super close to Dany, killed. Number 4, Barristan Selmy, one of her closest advisors and a man that knew her father and her brother Rhaegar, died in her service. Number 5, her dragon Viserion, killed by the Night King. Number 6, her longest advisor and friend who was with her even before she had her dragons, Jorah Mormont, dies. Number 7, Euron kills Rhaegal with 3 scorpion bolts. 2 of her children are now dead. 3 of them, you count Rhaegal, the unborn one in her stomach, but 2 of her dragons, dead. Number 8, Varys, her trusted advisor, betrays her. Number 9, Cersei has Missandei's head cut off right in front of Daenerys, losing her best friend. Number 10, the man she loved, Jon Snow, no longer desires her now that he knows they're related, and also happens to be her biggest threat to the Iron Throne. All of these things as piled up over the years. So if you didn't see this coming, you haven't been paying attention. And the last thing I have here, King's Landing bells ring and surrender. Dany takes one last moment to think it over, becomes a Mad Queen, and burns them all.
And she even took that extra moment to think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else would have just gone for it. And it's sad because all these things, basically, one of the biggest thing, like you were saying, was Jon. Like he was the last person she felt like was on her side, and he kind of broke her trust when he went and told Sansa, and she asked him not to. And it's sad because our favorite queen, this is why I only watch 1 through 7.